For the first time in a very long time, we are now spoilt for choice. Watches that were unavailable, that felt unobtainable 2 or 3 years ago, are now at our fingertips. We can spend a lot more time making rational decisions, choosing wisely with our money instead of pursuing the madness on social media and everywhere else. And I'll re-emphasize again, with scenarios like these, it's a great time being a watch enthusiast. Now that the dreaded mania has dipped somewhat and the ridiculous levels of demand is at a low for the first time in, let's say, 5 years, we are now starting to feel like the hobby is slowing down, that there are in fact watches at our fingertips. We can, if we like, pick up the pieces, literally and metaphorically. Now, eBay and Tudor Watches, it's a grand place. I don't know about all of you watching, but I always tend to browse platforms like eBay, Chrono24, the usual suspects for pieces that take my interest. And I don't think, let's say 3 years ago, that we would have guessed that the majority of Tudor watches, almost all of them, would be selling for under retail on these platforms. The early 2020s demand for them was so high that you couldn't land a gilt Black Bay 58, let alone a blue dial. The mania had set in, and this of course was perpetuated by the fact that demand was high. And stocks of these watches, they could not be bought fast enough. And it baffles me, just looking back 2 years ago, I had to go on a waiting list for my Pelagos FXD that I was only notified about a year later. Strange. And the fact of the matter is, in a frame of 24 months, times have changed quite drastically. So in the context of this video, why use Tudor watches as the example? And I think it's primarily because of the fact that most of us are familiar with them. The case studies surrounding this brand I've always found fascinating, and it's an ongoing thing. Because we have been there since its rebirth, infancy, its rise, the mania, and wherever it is now. And deeper than just this brand on the surface, I think many brands are going to follow as the years go by. I mean, second-hand prices for Omega, also exceptionally good. I'm taking the time in this video to not only highlight some great value pieces that I think are absolutely worth your time pursuing, but also to capture why Tudor. Why should you own a Tudor watch today? It's been said so many times, it's been repeated ad nauseum, but Tudor represents one of the last bastions of being a true tool watch. A watch very much following in the footsteps of what 1990s and earlier Rolex was about. Like them or hate them, and compare this to last week's Seiko video I made about their worth, Tudor watches represent great value in this segment, and they still do. The build quality, tolerances, in-house manufacture, movement regulation, this brand seems to get it right. It's taken them a decade to do so, but they're continually improving their product. Their designs, they are clean, they are unobtrusive, they appeal to everybody, and I think this is why such a large audience has been won over by them. Not only that, the sizes, the dimensions, the overall package of these pieces, there is a watch out there for all of us. And I think further than that, as owners, a lot of us can attest to the fact that we don't necessarily treat these watches with reverence. These are pieces that are made to get the job done, and they are fantastic for it. This Pelagos has traveled all over the world with me. It's swum in many different oceans, and it's a watch that I am always drawn to. I don't wear it every single day, but anytime I put it on the wrist, there's nothing lacking. So beyond the value, beyond the design appeal, the dimensions and how these watches wear, we can see them less as luxury items, more as tools, as instruments to use. Now for the remainder of the video, I thought I would cover a handful of watches that I think are well worth your time, well worth looking into. But there are still models that are in high demand today. Like for example, the Black Bay Chrono. This collection has been around for a long time, but still people want these pieces. Other examples, the Black Bay Ceramic, the Black Bay Dark. This material still seems to be quite popular. What about the Harrods edition? For years, this is a piece that is still sought after. Another piece where you can find deals, but one that still seems very sought after is the Pelagos 39. This is thanks to its size, but also the material that it's using. And finally, watches in the current Black Bay line from a year or 2 years ago seem to still carry quite a premium. Now frankly, with everything else, the sky is the limit. And these are just a handful I've cherry-picked for this video. There are plenty more out there. Let's start and have some fun talking about watches that I would put in quotations, the rejects. The 1926, how many of us know that this watch exists? Now we've seen Tudor playing around with different formulas, different inspirations. There is an example like the Claire de Rose, I think that's what they call it. There's the Royale. And then there's the 26. Piece that has many different elements, inspirations from the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. There's even texture to this watch's dial, a honeycomb pattern. It's well worth checking them out, and the prices, they are unreal. It's as if Tudor can't give these away. Now the next watch that is very much the highlight of this video, it's my personal favorite, the Pelagos FXD. And it actually depresses me how much this watch has tanked on the secondary market. A very different landscape to what it was 2-3 years ago, and you don't need me to emphasize how great of a watch it is. I would honestly say it's a piece that I would recommend to any budding enthusiast. Of course, it has a few drawbacks. It doesn't come with a bracelet. It can only wear straps. But if I could own 3 of these pieces, I would, and that is just a testament to how much I enjoy them. Not only the all blue FXD, but the all black, and even the Red Bull racing variants. Now to the Ranger. The poor Tudor Ranger. This watch, since its arrival, it saw a nosedive on the second-hand market. Unfairly so. Because when you start peeling back the layers, it is a terrific watch. The downside is that it didn't appeal to a lot of people because of its 39mm size, the funny green lume that they decided to use. I'm almost certain that this piece is going to return to a 36mm format, but I've seen some of these 39 Rangers on wrist in the wild, and I'm telling you, they look the business. They have a movement to match. They are very much built to be worn as tools. And just like the 1926, I think you'll be shocked seeing how much you can get these for secondhand. What about the P01? Gotta be one of the strangest, the weirdest, one of the most interesting prototype-inspired variants that Tudor has brought to us, and another watch that doesn't get the love. I'm sure many of us can understand why. It's an ugly duckling, it is an oddball, but what it lacks in some areas it also provides: leather strap on a full deployant clasp. It's such an interesting novelty seeing how this ratcheting mechanism works. And I would say that even today it's a piece that draws attention to the wearer's wrist purely because it's so out there. It's like Tudor's Ploprof. What about the Black Bay Pro? Another example of a watch that very much looks like a prototype. For the first time debuting a 39mm case format for a Black Bay GMT. And in here we saw a lot of small innovations. We saw a more up-to-date crown, the T-fit clasp now being integrated. I believe this was the first watch to do that. The full ceramic plots on the dial, and one of my favorite color choices for a GMT hand. Very much a mishmash of 1655 elements, and a piece that has deterred quite a few people because of its case thickness. These watches you can also find for a bargain secondhand. And I would say that if you're admiring it for complications' sake, what you're getting in one package, this is definitely the top watch on the list. What about the Black Bay Bronze? A material that not everybody appreciates, but some configurations, they really look better in this format. Especially those Arabic numerals on the dial, the gilt elements and how they correspond with the strap, with the case. Another piece that if you look hard enough, you can find for a great price. Now to some of the pieces that we have been clamoring for. Examples like the Black Bay 36, 39 and 41 from the previous generation with the smiling self-winding dial. These watches have always had a great reputation, and I can attest they're some of the most underrated Black Bays that Tudor offers. Holding a Black Bay 36 like this with the gloss dial next to an up-to-date and modern Rolex Explorer, it is simply unreal what you're getting for a fraction of the cost. What about the famed Black Bay 58, the original gilt dial, the blue dial? Now these watches 2 or 3 years ago were so popular you couldn't get them at retail, let alone for a discount on the second-hand market, but now you can get them by the truckload if you want. Nothing about these watches has changed. They are still terrific. It's only the fact that newer variants are out there and folks are more interested in trading in their older ones for the newer one. This is why the Black Bay 58 Blue is on the cover photo of this video, because, well, it represents one of the best value for money Tudors out there by a country mile. If you're tempted to live those days of 2018, 2020 when the hype was so high, to appreciate a watch that's 39mm, has a great wearing size, get one of these watches and enjoy it. Now, in a shocking turn of events that makes me sad, maybe not as depressed as the Pelagos scenario, but the Black Bay 54. This watch still remains another underrated property that is selling for insane discounts on the second-hand market. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why. 37mm diameter, 11mm thickness, T-fit clasp, micro adjust. You can get it on a rubber strap, you can get it on a full bracelet. It has all the gilt appointments on the dial. It even has a brown sun-brushed effect to it. There is nothing, literally nothing I could fault about this watch. Maybe the snowflake hand, but that's endemic with all of the pieces. I'll be sure to make a follow-up video and review of my Black Bay 54, which I look forward to doing. It's a piece that I think deserves so much more enjoyment, and I'll also say that even at this point, it represents the Black Bay collection the best for me. And last, but by no means least, the star child of 2019, the Black Bay GMT. Just like the many other watches on this list, like the 58, like the 54, This watch is being traded in for the newer model. But this piece hasn't lost its character. It still maintains all of the residuals that made it such a great watch back then and now. Like I said in the beginning, this is just a smattering of pieces that I've chosen for the video. Literally a dartboard throw on watches that I think are well worth pursuing. But there are so many others out there for you to sink your teeth in, and this is where I find the most enjoyment in this hobby. It's not only about searching for the watch that appeals to us the most, but it's finding the bargains that you can get on the second-hand market. For the first time in a very long time, we are now spoilt for choice. Watches that were unavailable, that felt unobtainable 2 or 3 years ago, are now at our fingertips. And even some of their most recent examples of watches that I think are some of the best pieces that Tudor has made in years, Black Bay 54 and FXD, we can get for amazing prices. And I'll re-emphasize again, with scenarios like these, it's a great time being a watch enthusiast. Hypothetically or not, have you chased down a Tudor watch and found it for an amazing price secondhand? And thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.